Okay, with any luck this video will be somewhat short, mainly because this mode can definitely be short, triply so if you know what you're doing. And with that, it's actually perfect for the PlayStation Portable. Not only because of that, but it's also a remaster. Yeah, it's an odd quirk of the system, that some games either got a remake or remaster on it. You got games like Mega Man Powered Up, Maverick Hunter X, Dracula X, Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins, I don't know why but I always want to say Ghouls and Ghosts, and this game along with the next two in the series. It was a very odd quirk of the system. This was also the start of Atlus while milking the Persona series. We won't see the full effects until Persona 4, but 3 is where all of this started with FES and Portable. It's not egregious as it is nowadays, mainly because for these games it's only a re-release, with digital versions being able to be bought on PSN. Probably not for much longer. And not to mention the localization team actually went in and gave us more faithful localizations. No more 4Kids people, the fan subs are now official. And with that, we finally got to play the Snow Queen quest, a mode that was unavailable in the original PS1 port for us Westerners. Well, at least in North America. There were plans to localize that quest, but that didn't happen until this game's release. As mentioned in the previous video, I do recommend this over the original PS1 port, primarily due to this game's speed and localization. But I don't think I can recommend this new quest to anyone, due to its tediousness. But hey, I can't just say don't play this mode, I gotta give more in depth, so join me in the frozen wasteland to see the official fan subs version of the first Persona game with Shin Megami Tensei, Persona. Welcome to the town of Mikage, home to the Sebek Corp and St. Herlam High. We see the students of the school perform a ritual called Persona, and when they complete it, a ghostly apparition of a girl appears, asking them for help and summoning lightning bolts from the sky, knocking 4 of our main characters out. This includes the silent protagonist of the game, Naoya, and during their slumber we meet a man named Philemon, who gives the group the power of Persona, the ability to summon the many gods and demons within oneself. After waking up, the group are told to go to the hospital in case something has happened to them, and they kill some time by visiting a classmate named Maki, though the visit is cut short mainly because she needs to be rushed to the ICU. But after an earthquake, the ICU somehow vanishes, and the hospital turns into a maze. However, following a screen, we see that this newly formed maze isn't the only thing that has changed, with demons flooding the hospital. With the character Nanjo's butler getting killed by a zombie, we avenge him by fully awakening to the power of Persona. After dealing with the zombies, the group makes their escape, only to run into the character Ellie, who takes the group to a shrine where we meet Maki's mother, Setsuko. She was shot by the man who did all of this, Kandori Takahisa, and eventually passes out due to her injury. Nanjo and another character named Mark goes out to get some guns, and Naoya and the others take Setsuko to St. Herlam for protection. You know, I don't really blame them since the hospital was clearly partnered with Umbrella. After getting to the school, Naoya explores it, coming across a mask from a play the school used to perform. It was known as the Snow Queen, and when its teacher, Miss Seiko, the last one to don the mask used in the play, puts it on, she is taken over by the Snow Queen's curse, with the school freezing over. Towers rise up, sealing our protagonist and his friends inside the school. Though there is one way to save everyone, and that's by utilizing the demon mirror. The downside to this is that the mirror has been shattered. The shards are in 3 of the towers, and while exploring them, it causes us to learn about the different people affected by the play. Which, you know, is cool, but I really didn't care about this. Once we get the mirror fixed up, we confront the Snow Queen, blasting her with the power of the demon mirror, finally separating Misako and the mask, though another girl who played the Snow Queen, who's essentially the female Japanese version of Two-Face, appears. This leads us in a fight between Lady Masquerade, and once defeated, we get to know who Madame Two-Face is real quick, Misako's classmate, Tomomi. She landed the part of the Snow Queen initially, but when she put on the mask, the left side of her face got burned. And, well, she kinda hated Seiko after that, and due to this, caused the Snow Queen to freeze the school over once Seiko put the mask on. With the defeat of Lady Masquerade, Tomomi is separated from the mask's influence. However, the mask isn't going down without a fight, with her new companions that appear kind of out of nowhere, she goes to complete the Eternal Night, the big threat that caused this little scramble in the first place. Well, aside from saving the teacher. And yes, the companions look exactly on who you think they are, and I'm not entirely sure why. They lay the smackdown on the Queen for the final time and head off to do the Sebek quest, with Mark running back for help, with a final message that reads, "Eternal night will fall again, so long as people seek to turn hope to despair." In short, I actually hate the Snow Queen quest, mainly because I just do not care about these characters that are showcased. Funnily enough, in my original draft, I only wrote about the Tower Guardians, but yeah, this applies to our main cast as well. You have 2 free slots this time around, with Nanjo, Brown, and Ellie being recruitable, but they're just left in the background thanks to this being more focused on Yukino and Ayase. Well, not really Ayase. There's a moment at the start of the quest with a character named Toto going mad thanks to how she rejected him, but aside from that, and with her confronting Yuriko, I really couldn't care about her. Seriously, her character has never clicked with me, to the point that I have never considered her once for the Sebek quest. But then again, she's probably a nice character and all. I've never read that manga, so you never know, maybe she has a better showcasing there. There's not a lot of focus on Yukino, which I'm actually disappointed at, considering how much Miss Seiko did for her. And it's weird, like, she used to be a delinquent, and thanks to Seiko's influence, she became more serious at school. Like, I'm a legit fan of Yukino from what little I've seen in Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment, but yeah, this really isn't it. Though speaking of which, Miss Seiko is supposed to be loved by the students, but aside from getting Yukino out of her delinquent state, it's like, where the fuck is this shown? Like, there's no real background on her, it's, aside from all the Tomomi shit. And it comes down to the point where I have to ask, why the hell do I care? Like, no, seriously, again, there's not a lot to her. No real background to her or anything like that, and there's really no reason for me to care. Then we have the 3 masters of the individual towers. And starting off from the top of the list, I feel for Kumi and her parents' expectations on her, but that's really it. Michiko is just a random bully who performed as the Snow Queen to spite a friend, and Yuriko, well, I have to be perfectly honest, kind of forgot about her. She apparently game overed herself to keep her beauty thanks to the influence of that mask, but they're minor stepping stones in this agony that is known as the Snow Queen quest. Well, I say agony, I really should just say boredom, because I just don't care about this journey. It does not feel complete. It just feels like a minor bump in the road to the Sebek quest, which, funnily enough, I mentioned the manga before. That adaptation fuses both quests together, with Aki sensing the group trying to get to the Deva Yuga, and sends them to the Frozen School. It's kind of interesting, but I really don't want to start sounding like a broken record at this point. Now, if you want to play the main quest, you know, the Spec quest, then congrats. As stated before, the localization is much closer to the Japanese original, and it's a very welcome change, especially since there are major grammar fixes in this game. And funnily enough, I'm actually bummed out that the line "roses are red, zombies are blue, but my face is white so you know I'm true" isn't in this version of the game. I really miss it because it really is a very unintentionally funny line. Even then, this localization will give the meaning of the story a better path to the player. But for everything else, check out my previous video on my thoughts on the Sebek quest. However, at the end of the day, if this game ever gets remade, combine the Sebek quest and Snow Queen quest into one story like the manga, because outside of not really caring about what goes on during this quest, it just feels incomplete. It felt like Peace Studio thought the game was too short, so they scrambled to add this mode in. Now, I highly doubt that was the case, you know, considering planning documents and the like, but I could bring up one infamous show and debunk all that, so yeah. Though the story isn't the only thing I hate about this quest, but its gameplay as well, because the devs took one look at the Mega Man series and said, yes, let's do that. You are able to tackle the 3 main dungeons in any order you want. It's kind of the reason why I really didn't like the story, though each dungeon has their own gimmick to them. So let's go through them and the headache that they gave me. Each dungeon, except for the last one in Nemesis Tower, have time limits to them. Take too long and I guess you're booted out or something. To be honest, I never ran out of time. It really seems so pointless for that to happen. In the remaster, you know how much time you have left in each dungeon throughout the whole entire run, while originally you only had certain points you could see how much time you had. Now, I really love this change as it allows me to plan things out better, though the only exception to this rule, as already mentioned in the first 3 towers, is Nemesis Tower. While you do have a time limit, it's best to make a beeline to the tower's guardian as fast as possible. As she gets stronger the slower you take. You know, I think it's a neat gimmick, doubly so since Michiko was unprepared. even if you do the other towers first. This tower really isn't an issue. In fact, the only one out of the main 3 that will give you any issue at all is Thanatos Tower. The main gimmick here is that if a party member dies, their persona gets sealed into Tartarus. No, thankfully not that Tartarus. I may love Persona 3, but fuck my life, I hate going through Tartarus. No, in short, you will have to make a beeline to get there so you can get your persona back. If you don't, then anyone without a persona isn't lasting long at all. Like seriously, outside of that, it's not a big deal. Tartarus is home to some of the mirror shards in this dungeon, and it's really not bad except for having to pay this random reporter student 5,000 yen for one, since she took it for some reason. I mean, you'll have enough, but why? It's very minor, I'm just confused on why she took it. But even then, if you're on the final floor about to face a boss, come across a random encounter, get killed! Yeah, have fun going back to the second floor, because Tartarus doesn't move. Fucking hell. Hypnos Tower is home to the realm of dreams, and you can get insight in some of the side characters, but yeah, this one's boring. The world of dreams, it's just another floor in this fucking dungeon. Now, these towers may have gimmicks, but I don't know, they're just so minor that it really doesn't distinguish them that much. Well, again, aside from Nemesis Tower, but that's more rushing for an easier boss fight. I do highly question the time limit. Like, again, I have never ran out of time or even came close to running out of time, and I just don't understand on why it was implemented. Now, if they made the dungeons a tad bit longer with the same time limit, then yeah, I can definitely understand that. It probably would help with level scaling, because at the entrance to each dungeon, there's a butterfly that will tell you if you're ready for the dungeon or not. However, unless you feel like grinding in Devil's Peak, some of these dungeons are probably going to be a low level run. You know, looking in hindsight, it's probably just a me thing since I just wanted to get through all these dungeons in just one fell swoop. But yeah, I was pretty much underleveled until I decided to actually go grind at Devil's Peak. And here's the thing, I don't really run from fights. I tend to fight every single battle I come across, but I just couldn't keep up with the enemies, which included the bosses. Speaking of, yeah, they can be difficult, and that's really only because there's no real level scaling. There's no map screen to get to one dungeon to another. You won't be able to, properly scale that easily. That compiles into the damn spell cards, meaning it's gonna be harder to fuse personas to be on par magic-wise with the demons you'll come across. Now, thankfully, yes, there is Devil's Peak to help with the grinding, but I don't know, maybe it's because the PS1 version being stuck on easy mode, but I just never felt the need to grind. Well, unless it was for the Ultimate Personas, which it doesn't matter if it's Sebek or Snow Conquest, Ultimate Personas are not worth it. That's more due to having separate levels for general growth and equipping personas. I don't like this, didn't notice this until the end of the game on the Revelations side and just, forgot to add it into the previous video, but fuck, this is idiotic. Hate that it's still here in the remaster, and it's just more tedious than anything else. Having that speed up feature does help with level grinding, but honestly, I felt annoyed that I had to do it. The main issue comes down to the Mega Man structure of the quest. Because of that, there was no stretches to gain experience. My first tower was Hypnos Tower, and after that, I felt too underleveled, and I was told I was too underleveled for each tower. Now, thankfully, I was able to power through before I wised up and went to Devil's Peak. Speed up feature works wonders, but if you're playing on actual hardware, thankfully the run button works in regular dungeons as well, so that can definitely speed up grinding sessions. However, I just don't find this quest fun, especially the last dungeon because it's a little too complicated for its own good. There's also the issue of the ambrosia. Now, I will forever say do not bother with the ultimate personas in this game, but if you really want all of them, then you have to tackle the dungeons in a specific order. This is something that I really do not like. Now granted, there's no way to do the morality system, but I think it would have been better to have optional super bosses or something like that than, something players wouldn't know about, unless they look up a guide or did some research beforehand. I'm probably bitter because I was looking at a guide while playing this, and I somehow missed the ambrosia, when it was right underneath the mirror guide. And again, outside of that, didn't have fun with this quest. There was a puzzle here, but that was piss easy. I just recommend playing the spec quest if you're at all interested in playing the first Persona game. They modified the dungeons a tad bit in this quest from my understanding, mainly adding like 1 or 2 extra save points and healing points. I guess I should mention some stuff I just noticed now. I'm not really a fan of personas having the same SP cost for the same exact skills. Like I gave Ayane the persona Urvashi, and it knows Bufula and Mabufu. Both of these skills costing exactly the same I can understand, with one being single targeting medium ice damage, and the other is small yet targets all. Though I raise an eyebrow when I see Mabufula costing exactly the same. Now this also applies to her starting persona Hori, where SP cost for all of the skills being 8. Not to mention that I ended up giving her the persona Tenjiku Tokube, and it has Same Rikarm that costs 7 SP. It looks like SP is based on the persona itself, which applies to a persona that I put on Yukino called Janus. It's known in the PS1 version as Sumi, at least I think, but putting him on Maki, that was fine, but when putting him on Yukino, the cost per skill is 24. What the hell? Talk about a steep increase. And you know what? I thought it was fine because the affinity with this persona is at max. I'm not a fan of this, and I'm feeling this more here since the game isn't locked on easy. Since this is the first time I'm playing through this quest, I set things on normal, and the game does restore SP per step. Obviously scaling the amount of SP depending on the difficulty, but I don't know, the cost return just really isn't enough. But then again, I actually wish this mechanic wasn't in the game, and we just had more SP restore items. Now this is more out of personal preference. I think once Instant Sin got made, it dropped this mechanic, but I really won't know until I try the PS1 version again. But yeah, it's funny how in Revelations Persona and SMT Persona, the SP restoring items really aren't needed because I only used any like one time, and that was before the final boss, which is just weird. But hey, aside from that, I'm actually glad that a lot of my issues battle-wise is fixed in this remaster. Now, first things first, you're told the area of effect for each move, and I really love this, mainly due to the formation. Now, I'm not a fan of formation in general. It's kind of the reason why I don't really jive with Fire Emblem, outside of Lucina, but being able to figure out what my physical skills can actually hit is a lifesaver. No more trial and error, so if you want that physical build, it just became a hell of a lot easier to do. Oh, speaking of which, while I still don't like this mechanic, it's made less annoying here by literally defaulting back to your saved formation if you get attacked from behind. And that was fucking annoying in the original, triply so since I kept expecting to go back to the original formation in the PS1 version. Maki really should not be in front. Well, maybe closer to the front for one boss fight, but hey, that's the exception, not the rule. The only thing I'm actually shocked to say is that I prefer fusing in the original than here. Like last time, I stuck to manual fusion, but the looks of things here actually kind of bugged the shit out of me for very petty reasons. Like the worst fusion comes down to Persona 5 Strikers in SMT4, at least I think for SMT4, haven't played it in a century, where you're forced to do search fusions. But when you select the spell card here, the grid goes away. It's kind of confusing because the original menu was structured perfectly fine, where it tells you the resulting fusion from the selected pair. Again, it's petty, don't really like it, though I'm glad I'm not stuck with search fusion. I probably just made a million enemies by saying that, but you know what? I'm not afraid to be correct. Search fusion is fucking horrible. Other things I just fucking love is that the map is now back to how SMT did things on the fucking SNES. Seriously, what was with that great void of hell? But regardless, with the traditional SMT map, running through the overworld is a lot faster. Same with running through the dungeons as mentioned before, because this time, the run button actually works in the dungeons as well. They actually overcorrected it, like, your normal walking speed, that's perfectly fine, but hit the run button and you'll be breaking the sound barrier. Though hey, an overcorrection is way better than no correction at all. Switches are now properly labeled on the map, which is something I love and makes a Deva Yuga easier. Seriously, I just passed the switches in the original port. Not to mention trap spaces, drop spaces, and those light puzzles are also marked on the mini-map to make navigation in general easier. Look, gameplay wise, I love the upgrades this game got. It makes things in the normal quests easier to run through. Not an easier for a game journalist, but an easier that takes the jank out of the original. That's one thing a good remaster should do, add a necessary addition to the game. Isn't that right, P3P on modern systems? Now granted, not all additions are necessary, but hey, I love what we got, so I really shouldn't complain. While Persona 1 isn't the best game, first title, need to figure shit out, I can confidently say that this version is something you should play as a Persona fan. I also found an HD ROM hack, which obviously I didn't use for, well, two reasons. One, I found it like way after I finished recording, and two, if I'm using an emulator, I really shouldn't, use any HD hacks like this. So if those eBay prices are a little too much for you, then, there you go. And the only real reason why I brought up that HD ROM hack is because, well, the emulator isn't the best looking, like there's random lines and such. It's something I wish I could work around, but I don't really do this for a job, so I can't really write stuff off, and while I want to own a PSP, it still wouldn't help me because I don't have the cash to actually buy the game, nor do I have the cash to get a PSP modified so I can play an ISO on the system itself. It also doesn't help that I'm saving for a car, which, stream elements down below in my card. I appreciate the help. Stuck with 2011 Kia Sorento. It sucks. But even then, that presentation thing I was talking about in the last video, yeah, it's even worse here. Like, for starters, I don't mind the gray UI, I kinda like the simplicity of it, though I can definitely understand if someone preferred the more industrial look to the original. However, they didn't update the damn character portraits for the remaster. Yeah, that dead look that stares right into your soul that will know all of your weaknesses. Every embarrassing thing you did this way from Sunday. The look of a monster standing right at the foot of your bed, waiting for the right time. Yeah, that's a constant even through the fucking battles. Yeah, for some reason the portraits are in them and it creeps me the fuck out, like unironically so, and I really wish they weren't there and, actually emoted during cutscenes. This same issue definitely applies to Snow Queen Quest, like Seiko's reaction to her classmate's face, that same eating grin she has in her high school days. Yeah, that's all you're getting. They really needed new portraits and such, and it's not to bring down the artists who worked on here, like Sojima Shigenori-san and Kaneko Kazuma-san, and I will be singing the praises of Kaneko-san's art, later on in this little marathon, but I don't know if they were told not to do the emotes or if Atlas just said,
don't even bother redesigning or adding new portraits. Who's gonna fucking notice?
Like, seriously, that can definitely be distracting. And what can also be distracting is that zoom out for cutscenes and battles. You have this, giant void in the background, but the funny thing is, I've literally never noticed it in all my years of, playing this game and dropping it after a while. And it's weird, because I've seen a lot of videos mention the same thing, but yeah, just never paid attention to it. I am disappointed that the after images aren't on the personas anymore. It had a coolness factor that, really made this stand out. Really do not understand why this wasn't a thing in the remaster, but hey, I'm bitching about pointless things. The cutscenes, more specifically the FMVs, definitely got an upgrade, though I would rather things be 2D animated instead of 3D. Now, the models themselves, they aren't bad, and, the animation is actually really good, though anime, outside of cars and such, doesn't really take well to the realm of 3D. I mean, there's cases that work, but I just like the 2D aesthetic more than the 3D aesthetic. I mean, do we want to be like Berserk or X-Arm? Yeah, I didn't think so. The voices for the game aren't bad, actually. Funnily enough, there's no Japanese voice acting for the CG cutscenes. Though again, the new voices we got aren't bad, and are a fantastic upgrade to what we had beforehand. Now, the music, on the other hand, well, I love Lone Prayer and Bloody Destiny. I can actually really jam out to Bloody Destiny. It just feels right at times. Now, granted, they fucked over a lot of the other soundtracks, like Mai and Aki's themes, they're here, but they've been swapped around for some reason. And we also do miss out on a lot of tracks from the original, specifically the Battle Awakening theme. And I really do not understand this, because that song is perfect for the Awakening. And as much as I love Bloody Destiny, kinda wish Deadline just stayed in for the boss theme. Just hearing that rocking guitar when you hit fight, it just feels so good. It definitely needed to have a middle ground because both versions have fantastic soundtracks. It's a shame because I know there's two camps to this, but I just hate that no one can get a definitive version with the soundtrack. It doesn't help that the music choices suffer from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Japanese dub syndrome, because they only want to use like 5 tracks for any given scene. It's kind of annoying and ruins some of these scenes to like no end. Look, at the end of the day, both versions have fantastic songs to them, and the PSP version looks good on actual hardware. Really wish they updated the portraits, but hey, what can you really do? Nothing. Nothing really, but hey, when taking into account of story, gameplay, graphics, and sound, Shin Megami Tensei Persona goes down a point from an 8 to a 7. Now personally, this is the superior version, primarily due to the better localization, although the password at the start of the game should have been kept the same. However, there is still the same presentation issues I had in the original version. It doesn't help that the music can and will screw some of these cutscenes over. Even then, this version's quality of life fixes to the main game itself is heavily welcomed, makes getting through these dungeons even better. The only reason why I went down a point is primarily because, while I may love the quality of life fixes, it's really just that presentation that really kills it for me. Love that we got new FMVs and all, but that really doesn't fix these dead eyes. Regardless, if you want to play the game legally, it is available on the PlayStation Vita's PSN. I believe that PSN for the PSP is now defunct, so, you know, get those mods when you can, my friends. I may like physical copies, but if you gotta sail the high seas, then, well, I'm not gonna judge you. However, this is where this video ends. It's not really on anything else, unfortunately, which, you know, would be very, very fucking easy to put this on PC, PS4, One, Switch. Come on, Atlas, it's a fucking gold mine, but hey, regardless, it doesn't really matter at this point. We all know Atlas ain't gonna do shit, so join me next time when rumors become reality in Shin Megami Tensei Persona 2, Innocent Sin. So please like, comment, and subscribe, share this video with anyone and anything, and that includes our next door neighbor Edith, and take care.
I hear a voice to cause me, so love on me.